So good evening, everyone, and welcome to Dia's Readings in Contemporary Poetry series. My name is Megan Whitco, and I'm an assistant curator here at Dia, and it's my great pleasure to welcome everyone to tonight's reading. So as you all know, Vincent Katz has been the curator of the series for the past 5 years, and he's brought a really diverse group of poets here together at Dia Chelsea and to share their work with each other and with us as well. So I'm very pleased to welcome our two poets for this evening's program. We have Robert Hershon and Simon Pettet. I want to thank you both for so generously agreeing to be here tonight and to be a part of our series. The Readings in Contemporary Poetry is supported by the New York City Department of Cultural Affairs and also Brooklyn Brewery, who kindly gives us the complimentary cold beverages. And we're also deeply appreciative of all the assistance from Dia's staff who helped coordinate the series, in particular John, Max, and Mary Catherine, who are helping us tonight. So following the first reader, we have a brief intermission before resuming with the second speaker, and we will have titles by both poets available for sale out front during intermission and also at the close of the program, and those are all cash only. And I think that's all the announcements for tonight. So without any further ado, it is my pleasure to give a very warm welcome to Vincent, who is going to be introducing our first speaker for the evening. Thank you.
Thank you, and welcome to Splendor Among the Ginkgos. No, just kidding. We don't actually give titles to the readings, but tonight I felt slightly inspired to do that. We do, however, put a lot of thought into the pairings of the poets that we present to you. And sometimes they're of different generations, sometimes they're actually couples, sometimes they've collaborated. And tonight's pairing, I think, is really significant, not only in terms of the qualities of their poetry, which is, of course, what we're here to celebrate, but also in their exemplary attitudes as community members of the poetry world. So I think we're honoring and showing respect to that tonight as well, because that's basically what we live on in the poetry world. And I'd like to mention that this is the penultimate reading of 2015, and the final reading will be on December 8th. It's Amy King and Alan Davies, so please come back for that one. And we have a great lineup for the spring as well, including Charles North, who's here tonight, C.A. Conrad, Cecilia Vicuña, and Keith and Rosemary Waldrop, among others. So check in for those as well. First reader will be Robert Hershon. Robert Hershon's 14th poetry book, Freeze Frame, appeared this year from Pressed Wafer. Previous titles include Into a Punchline, Poems 1984 to 94, The German Lunatic, Calls from the Outside World, and Goldfish and Rose, all published by Hanging Loose Press. Hershon's awards include 2 fellowships from the National Endowment for the Arts and 3 from the New York Foundation for the Arts. As a founding co-editor of Hanging Loose Press, he's making plans for the press's 50th anniversary next year. Robert Hershon's poetry takes you by surprise. You think you know where he's taking you, but often you end up somewhere else. His short poem, Pace, is a perfect example of this. It begins, quote, "On skinny old Lexington Avenue, I speed up to pass this man," end of quote. Plain language, simple situation. You imagine a typical New York City denizen, frustrated by the slowness of the pace, obviating the obstacle in order to speed up. But no, the poem concludes, quote, "So I can slow down. I take great pleasure in the exact size of my steps," end of quote. And this could be taken as one description of Hershon's poetics, taking his steps as a post-Williamsian correlative to poetic feet, i.e., he takes pleasure in his feet and in his particular mode of walking. Which reminds me of another poem of his, What I'm Wearing This December Day, which begins, I'm wearing big shoes for heavy weather. Then there's Hershon's humor. It's low key, so it doesn't overpower his poetics. But it is omnipresent and never far from the surface. Here's an example from Freeze Frame. Myrna Loy was never lewd with Harold Lloyd. She never lay with Turhan Bey and never lied to Alan Ladd. As Hershon puts it in the poem's punchline, joy unalloyed. For that and more, please welcome Robert Hershon to Dia.
Thank you, Vincent. Hello, everybody. I got a beard. You guys get a beard? Yeah. I'm particularly pleased to be here tonight because to me, the Dia Foundation and Jimmy Schuyler's first reading years ago, which is the most electric evening in the history of American poetry, I think, have always made it a very special place. Glasses, this is like setting up a little hot dog stand. You know. So, this is the title poem of Goldfish and Rose. It was only after I wrote the book that I realized that sounded like a Jewish law firm. Gotta look at your watch. An old man sits cross-legged on the Boulevard Saint-Germain and displays his art on a white cloth. Roses carved from beets and goldfish carved from carrots. People stop to admire them, but he does not speak. He holds a beet and a knife. 2 nights later, he is showing the same roses and the same goldfish, and the beet he is holding is still entirely a beet. What's his game then? Does he suffer from sculptor's block? Does he maintain a museum rather than a gallery? Does he despise commerce? Maybe he knows he's carved 1 perfect rose and 1 perfect goldfish, and he is waiting for all Paris to celebrate that. Why are they taking so long? Must his art rot and must he die? Well, that is the tradition. Might as well read another title poem. This is, where the hell did it go? You know that poems can move around in a book when you're not keeping a close eye. Calls from the outside world. Celeste called work to leave a message for Nathan. Tell him Celeste called. Tell him something happened. And that became a famous phone message and part of the folklore, finally working its way into a byword at the shop, and it came to designate a call from anyone's spouse or companion. Hey, Richie, line 6, something. And there was an amused pride in having invented such a good piece of workplace slang, so specialized and so secret and so site-specific. But before long, Nate was gone, and then one by one, nearly everybody else. So today, the slang is just as good as ever, but completely forgotten or unknown to the present staff. So we see that for slang to survive, we require a body of speakers initiated in its use, large enough to provide continuity and with a core of permanence. This must be why the linguists invented prisons as language laboratories, so that the whole country can imitate the speech of young black men, but never actually have to see them. So white golfers can cry, "You the man," and little blonde girls can shout, "You go girl." I promised Donna I'd read this poem because she's in it and because I I didn't read it last week, what I read. Olives. Donna says olives are packed in tall, narrow jars so all the olives can see out. It's not the sort of thing she would write down, she says, but if I write it down, and I am clearly the sort of person who would write it down, and in fact, I have written it down, I should give her credit. Well, maybe I will, and maybe I won't. When I enter New York Hospital to be carved upon by Dr. Fowler, several people say, "You might get a good poem out of it." Donna did, as though we were competing for the most interesting scar. I'll show this to her and she'll hand it back without looking up. "Not finished," she'll say, but of course it is. Maybe not. I don't want to alarm any civilians in the room, but this room is heavily occupied by poets, and I have a poem I wanted to read as a service to the community. And it's right in here somewhere. There it is. It's called The Answers to the Questions for that rainy day reading at the bookstore in the mall. Where do you get your ideas? From a guy named Howie in Philadelphia. They're $19.95 a dozen, less if they've been used. I used to get some from my family's horrible holiday dinners, but they won't let me in the house anymore. Who are your influences? Any number of colorful obscurities whose names you feel bad about not knowing, and this is because I am inventing them as I speak. And Frank O'Hara. You always have to say Frank O'Hara. When do you put in the hidden meaning? I usually write that first, then cover it up with mud and leaves so that it's totally obscured. Then I forget where I put it, so your guess is as good as mine. You can bring your own meaning and just slather it on. Can you stay for the open reading? I'd like to stay. I really want to stay. I'd do anything in the world to stay. I've dreamed of staying. I would have definitely stayed, but now I've fallen into past tense, so I'm afraid it's impossible to climb out, and I think there's a terrible storm coming. What is that buzzing sound? I wonder if I'll get home faster if I get on Route 80 and take the bridge. I see myself speeding down a deserted highway. What is that annoying sound? Oh, it's me. I seem to be reading. I wondered why they turned the music off. Okay, pausing for a sip of beer. Excellent beer. Wanted to read some newer things. This is called Talents. I know all the words to break the news to mother, and most of the words to who put the snatch on the Lindbergh baby, and I am available for weddings and bar mitzvahs or just to put myself back to sleep. I can identify Lionel Atwill, Lionel Stander, and Lionel Barrymore, but you don't care, do you? Seen one Lionel, seen them all. Why go on to Maria Schell, Maria Montez, and Maria Uspinskaya? I can light a cigarette in the strongest wind, but I haven't smoked in 35 years, and there's no point in offering this service to strangers. It's the first approach that would be awkward. After all, they know they're dying. Sorry, smokers. My life with celebrities. I saw Uma Thurman walking a dog on 7th Avenue South. I saw Philip Seymour Hoffman eating lunch at Café Henri, and Susan Sarandon eating tacos at Lupe's, and Julianne Moore eating dinner with her children at Vaselka, and Gregory Hines eating breakfast at the Pink Teacup. I saw Jack Benny wearing a trench coat that reached his ankles, looking at the Christmas windows at Saks Fifth Avenue, and just down the block, Robert Ryan wearing a big Irish turtleneck, but they weren't together. I saw Lauren Bacall and Arthur Schlesinger Jr. saying goodbye to each other on a Lexington Avenue corner at 8 a.m., and I followed her for 2 blocks because I happened to be going to work that way. I saw Dana Andrews very drunk in the blue bar of the Algonquin Hotel. I saw Cassius Clay, as he still was then, waiting to cross 6th Avenue, and I stood right next to him. I did not speak to any of these celebrities, and they gave no indication that they knew I had seen them. I could have approached them, of course, but the mere sight of them had already enriched my life immeasurably, and what more could I have asked? What more? Right, more beer. I need breath for this one. I'm glad we don't really have ginkgo trees here, because I used to live down the street from a female ginkgo tree. This is not pleasant. They have a terrible smell when they're enticing male ginkgo trees. I don't know exactly how that works, but this is called MD for DB, State of the Union. If anyone is looking for us, we can be found waiting in the waiting room under the coats hung fort to a hook and surrounded by walkers and canes. We are here to see Dr. James Blake and Dr. Daniel Krauser, cardiologists, and Dr. Diana Santini and Dr. Marina Kafanovich, internists, and Dr. Horatio Wildman, dermatologist, and we are reading a 2-year-old copy of Sports Illustrated, and Dr. Douglas Scher, urological oncologist, and Dr. Worcester Welton, psychologist, and Dr. Jonathan Silver, psychopharmacologist, and why is that woman talking to her chair, and Dr. Ann Tilley, pulmonologist, and Dr. Susan Loeb-Zeitlin, gynecologist, and Dr. Dana Leifer, neurologist, and we have gone to the toilet 3 times just to move, and Dr. Jane Lee and Dr. Michael Nissen, ophthalmologists, and why is that purple-faced man coughing so hard, and Dr. Sonal Kumar, hepatologist, and Dr. Alejandro Gonzalez de la Valle, orthopedic surgeon, and Dr. Ashutosh Kacker, otolaryngologist, and Dr. Stephen Frucht, director of movement disorders, and we are worried, or we are relieved, or we need further tests, long tests that require lying very still for a very long time, and finally we are ready to leave, but the door is blocked by Dr. Stanley Moshman and Dr. Stephen Marco and Dr. Christopher Bowers, dentists. Those are all real doctors. I particularly like Horatio Wildman and Worcester Welton. You know. This is at the Victoria and Albert. A sunny day at the V&A. I am in the William Morris tea room surrounded by peacocks and paisleys and Andre and Donna, but I am the only one drinking tea because I try to do the right thing. Andre is wearing shorts because of the record London heat wave, 79 degrees. There is a painting, The Slaughter in Cologne of St. Ursula and her 11,000 virgins, and the manager in me begins to worry about straightening this out. How do we know they were all virgins? Why were they in Cologne? What were their dinner plans? How do you kill 11,000 chickens or cows, much less virgins? Did they struggle? Did they pray? What were the last virgins doing while the first virgins bled? What do you do with 11,000 heads? What do you do with 11,000 torsos? How many Huns can you fit on the head of an axe? Is there a great hill in Cologne today where flowers grow especially tall and devout? Once we were on the tube going to Andre's in West Hampstead for one of Tony's hearty New Zealand dinners, and we were lost. I asked directions from a clerkish man in a tired suit, and he was helpful. And we walked through the same tunnels and boarded the same second train. So I joked to Donna, maybe we should take him along to dinner. And his eyes lit up at the prospect of an adventure away from Mum and the telly, and I was filled with remorse. Andre, we've brought a stranger to dinner, and we're all going to talk about plumbing inventories while savoring our pavlovas. Would that have been so terrible? Now, Wikipedia tells me St. Ursula probably never existed, and her 11,000 virgins were a monk's mistranslation for an 11-year-old girl. And isn't that enough beheading to commemorate? It didn't take much to become a saint in those early days. I myself honored St. Gottfried, who gave a potato to a dog, but there's no painting of that or of a dinner laid before a lonely man. I like to wander in the V&A and be by myself with the entire history of wrought iron or blue glass or the St. George altarpiece. Life wasn't all slaying dragons. He died a complicated martyr's death. Did they split him lengthwise and then behead him, or the other way around? Talk about overkill. And on this bright spring day, beheading remains a popular worldwide sport. 11,000 virgins, all in a week's work. I wanted to read a number of poems that are dedicated to friends, some of whom are here tonight. And this is called Ed Head. It's a real person. And it was for Ron Overton. April 23rd, flowering trees burst into bloom, eyes water. Shoulder is no better. Throwing on a jacket is a step-by-step procedure, and I think of all those sore-armed pitchers marching backwards into dugouts and on out of the world. Although 50 years ago today, Ed Head pitched his no-hitter for the Dodgers, the first major league game I ever saw. I went with my uncle and cousin. My father stayed home in Sunday sloth mode. How was the game, he asked. A no-hitter, I said. You don't mean a no-hitter, he said. You mean a shutout. You don't know the difference. He was angry that he'd missed the game, and he stayed angry for years and years. And what happened to Ed Head? Did he open a saloon with his uncles and cousins, egg, fat, lunk, and swelled? Or just grow fat coaching in the 3I League with Raleigh Fingers and Bill Hands, Jim Ray Hart and Barry Foote? There's no time to be that disorganized now. He'd be part of a gold head value pack card set with Shirley Temple and Louis Lips, Frank Chin and Maurice Cheeks. 2 Ed Heads get you 1 Johnny Blood. 10 Ed Heads get you 1 Tom Thumb. In fact, you can't give away your Ed Heads. You might as well just learn to love him and put him back in the box. I should explain that Overton and I maintain the world's greatest collection, perhaps only collection, of people whose names are body parts. And you may immediately think of like, oh, I bet they don't have so-and-so, but we do. There's nobody we don't have. Unless they invent new body parts, which, I hate to read a baseball poem after the Mets World Series, but Mets fans can now move on to worrying about missing something. Worrying about the Knicks, if you care. Forgive me, I was just taking such pride in being totally well organized, and suddenly I'm not. Tap dance, do whatever you want. Oh, well, I'm mortified to say that I was going to read a poem called Bushwick and Menahan, dedicated to Charles North, and another poem dedicated to Tony Toll, and I don't have them here. So you'll just have to do without, and probably your lives will go on. See, I don't really believe I left them out, but I did. All right. In that case, I'm going to close with this poem, which is called The German Lunatic, and it was for Paul Violi. And it starts with an epigraph from Robert Ripley, the believe it or not man. Otto Leuben, the German lunatic, bet that he could turn up a pack of cards in a certain order. He turned the cards 10 hours a day for 20 years, exactly 4,246,028 times before he succeeded. I don't believe it. Of course, I'd like to believe it, but I'm tired of being amazed. Analysis before amazement, that's my Knotty Pine Wall motto, forensics before faith. And yet, in Martha's summer house, we wander naked and lumpy among the damp books left by mysterious old children. The swans on the pond are fully mechanized and the ospreys are painted on the backdrop, but the illusion of ease is complete. Everyone should have sex on a table sticky with jam from time to time. Roger Henstooth, the New York Herald, seen standing by the sea, the undertow sucking the sand from beneath his heels, stood at another point on the shore of the same ocean, staring yearningly at the horizon. 50 years later, he was larger and older. Otto Leuben is just weeks into his task. His confidence level is high, his air jaunty. What does he do the other 14 hours after the deck has grown sticky? Does the national economy reflect his diligence? Do other lunatics emulate him? Ethnic Germans in Poland, ethnic Poles in Hungary, Turkish laborers in Silesia? If we could get an additional 10 card minutes per man, Mr. Minister, we could rule the world. 10 minutes, just think of it. Professor Scribner, the oral historian, swallowed a set of pearl buttons every morning for 40 years and was used as ballast on the good ship Lollipop. Oysters in the brackish water grow more and more agitated. And have we heard from Leuben today or any of his people? He was 3 cards from success last Thursday when an errant breeze played him mischief. He shuffled without complaint, according to reports. Was he using the Delta Fly's Florida deck or the one with doggies? Here the message breaks off. Ernest Gerrand, the Delaware divine, was stranded in the high church for 20 years and survived on martini sandwiches. He remained of good cheer, but no one can sing in that key. And what, if I may ask, is the certain order? Ducky Lowry had the world's largest collection of syllables, but he kept them in a gym bag, and he put the gym bag in the Buick, and he drove the Buick to Pennsylvania, and he misplaced the Keystone State, and that's how Paramus, New Jersey became a Great Lakes port. What is the certain order? I'll take one guess, and the gods will reward my modesty. Ace, 2, 3, 5, 7, 4 of spades. Queen, king, jack of hearts. Clubs. Cups. He turns away. Was there a slight smile in his lunatic eyes? Was I even close? He shuffles. Giuseppe de Maio of Naples was born with 2 hearts, and Alfred Langevin of Detroit could blow out a candle with his eyes, and Margaret Guest, age 3 years, earned a degree in music from Baker University, and the great sloth of Ecuador and a Chinese sage in the Portuguese Navy. The townspeople have seen the foreign women with their jam-smeared faces. The alienist will permit no intruders. Still, they come, leaving their jars by the front door, guava, quince, blackberry, and robin. Who is monitoring Leuben 10 hours a day? What were the stakes? Was it a casual moment, a joking bet over coffee? Was Leuben already a lunatic, or did he become a lunatic only after succumbing to the temptation to win the wager? How did he win the celebrity that enabled him to be known as the German lunatic? Were there others of national scope? Were they a measurable percentage of the population? Did they have a league, a church, an agent, a slogan, a jersey, a turf, a tattoo, a kind of funny way of walking when the moon is shining merry on the bay? Put your elbow down once, it will find jam on the table. Put it down again, and a pattern will form. Every day like every other day, the perfect order, the inviolable routine. But is there something in the air this morning? Or did we imagine it later while regaling the townspeople? Leuben to his table at his usual 7:44, breakfast from the acey-deucey cafe. He pisses on the wood stove, howls like a hound, and puts on his mittens and his motorman's cap. He shuffles twice. He lays out the first 6 cards vertically, it being spring, and the gods explode in laughter. An exchange of glances between the lunatic, his scorekeeper, his oddsmaker, his chronicler, his housekeeper, his purse holder, his devoted opponent. 6 more cards, fresh jam, a pattern of steps. You may not share the triumph, only the aftermath. The Prussian celebrations and the analysis by experts, many of them retired madmen. If a lunatic believes himself to be Otto von Bismarck and it develops that he is Otto von Bismarck, is that not a cure? And the French are in a jam? If the laying out of cards is not merely incidental to this lunacy but central to it, then the achievement proclaims recovery. And what say you now, townspeople and handicappers? So, Leuben the citizen strolling on the Strasse, shaven and bathed, clear of eye and nostril, a swan tattoo on his cheek, a portrait on his lapel, school children romping in the traffic jam, the mayor's wife climbing to the town clock, the street musicians chewing on their sparrows, the very grass braided with red ribbon, and Leuben pauses and smiles and scratches and whispers, "I did it. I could do it again." Thank you. Thank you.
Simon Pettet is an English-born poet and longtime resident of New York's Lower East Side. He's the author of lyrical poetry, More Winnowed Fragments, Hearth, his collected poems, and As a Bee, the last 3 published by Talisman House Publishers. Pettet compiled and edited a selection of James Schuyler's art writings and co-edited with James Meets a collection of Schuyler's posthumous poems titled Other Flowers. He collaborated with painter Duncan Hanna on the limited edition book Abundant Treasures and interviewed photographer-filmmaker Rudy Burkhart to create the books Conversations with Rudy Burkhart About Everything and Talking Pictures. In reviewing Simon Pettet's 1987 book, Lyrical Poetry, I wrote, quote, "I like lyrical poetry because of its intelligent confidence. It's not afraid to be glib or, I guess, musical. There's something about the music of the lyre when it's tuned well that rings true." End of quote. I also cited his brash humility and genuine sense of place, in poems that evoked the provincial particularity of parts of the UK back then. As he wrote in his poem Nocturne from that collection, "The outside, black, unknown, is waiting for exploration." There's a lot of love, a lot of eroticism in Pettet's poems, from Lipo to Thetis to Nerval to Lorenzo da Ponte. But more to the point are Pettet's own words, which shift and move beyond anything too literal to a general zone where poetry itself is paramount, as in his poem Psora. If it's not real, this address, then what is it that I understand? And if it has form, what shape does it make in the dark? His wailing and complaint may come from a literal itch, the meaning of the word psora, but also from a more metaphysical itch. One is always aware of both in Pettet's poetry, and his poetics itself hovers between the two, giving precedence to neither, creating an intriguing flux state. To the freedom of the direct observation already present in his early poems, Pettet has added the deepening wisdom of years, always maintaining the lightest edge to keep it all afloat. Please join me in welcoming Simon Pettet to Dia.
Thank you, Vincent. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dia. Thank you, Megan, everybody here for coming out on a wet day. Thank you, Bob, for a pleasurable co-reader. I'm going to read from three sources. I'm going to read from this book, Hearth, which was my collected poems, and my newest book called As a Bee, and hence the little bee that I will stamp your book with. And then I'm going to read a few new poems just to make myself alive. Oh, look. It is the hour when smoking horizon under a mist screen conceals its outline. When forestry turns green to yellow, then brown. When the sun, blushing visibly, makes one last bow before departing. And even though we don't talk of it, so awed are we by its immensity and the parallel insignificance of our lives, we do watch it go down. Oh, look. Oh, look. It is the hour when smoking horizon under a mist screen conceals its outline, when forestry turns green to yellow, then brown, when the sun, blushing visibly, makes one last bow before departing, and even though we don't talk of it, so awed are we by its immensity and the parallel insignificance of our lives, we do watch it go down. I'm just going to dance around a little bit in this book called Hearth. I'm a big fan of bibliomancy, wherein you just open it up and, good grief, that's the poem. How fortunate to be alive for just this second. How glorious to be in this light, which will never be the same again. How beautiful, sad, and immaculate Ein Anders, the middle-aged bicyclist, he too is alive. The woman who carries her mewling child piggyback, the north wind that blows in my face, even the couple going by in a boat, they too can't refrain from taking pictures. How fortunate to be alive for just this second. How glorious to be in this light which will never be the same again. How beautiful, sad, and immaculate Ein Anders, the middle-aged bicyclist, he too is alive. The woman who carries her mewling child piggyback, the north wind that blows in my face, even the couple going by in a boat, they too can't refrain from taking pictures. That poem is called New Amsterdam. It was written in Old Amsterdam. I'm not very good with titles, so some of these poems just called poem. This poem is called The Fool. The Fool. F-O-O-L. The fool is the image of a life chosen. He is sitting high up in the mountains meditating with his dog, Spot. He will not sensibly answer your question, but neither will he ignore it. The white peaks of the blue mountains are cold, but they are fortunately far off. The terrible distances unknown, but fear not, he is immediately radiant. The cold rigidity of his gaze is actually warmed by his knowledge. So it's okay. I have a whole bunch of poems that are in this book and actually elsewhere that are admonitions, a la Jack Spicer, but actually it's a waggling finger that, brush your teeth, be good to your parents, So this the mode of admonition, and it's a dubious form to write in because it presupposes that you're so evolved that you've got it together. And nothing could be farther from the truth. This poem's called Echo. I always love to read this poem at the end of a reading, but I also love to read it right now. It's called Echo, 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 Echo. Drink no more. Drink no more from that pool wherein your fat face stares back. What is this pompous self-regard? It is nothing, though it has been continuing lo these many years, and will continue without you, as others will stare at the glasses on the table, at the emptiness of your poor pot. Sit back, breathe deep, and consider the fountain. Drink no more from that pool wherein your fat face stares back. What is this pompous self-regard? It is nothing, though it has been continuing lo these many years, and will continue without you, as others will stare at the glasses on the table, at the emptiness of your poor pot. Sit back, breathe deep, and consider the fountain. And while I'm on the subject of admonitions, I'll read one more admonition from this book. It has a wonderful title, Latin title, the Garra Rufa, Garra-Rufa. And that's a little fish that exists in Anatolia. And that's all I need to say. Little tiny fish. Garra Rufa. Remember what the fish say. Don't blow it. Don't drown. Don't put piping hot water in the cold water spin cycle. Separate the paper from the plastic, the dead skin from the old wounds. Be mindful. Don't be a bottom feeder or swim away from it all. Remember what the fish say. Don't blow it. Don't drown. Don't put piping hot water in the cold water spin cycle. Separate the paper from the plastic, the dead skin from the old wounds. Be mindful. Don't be a bottom feeder or swim away from it all. My beloved wife Sarah is here in the audience. I'm going to read this poem to her. It starts off like this. It's a poem, and then in open the brackets, I'm a madman poet. So parentheses. crazy poem. I'm a madman poet. I'm a madman poet, and I love my psychiatric nurse. I wear her cashmere red around my neck like a sash across my body. We like to talk on the phone a lot. We haven't a plan. We like to laugh. I hold her image at all times in perpetuity and in the highest esteem. And savor. It is water, our every fucking precious sparkling moment. I'm a madman poet, and I love my psychiatric nurse. I wear her cashmere red around my neck like a sash across my body. We like to talk on the phone a lot. We haven't a plan. We like to laugh. I hold her image at all times in perpetuity and in the highest esteem, and savor. It is water. Our every fucking precious sparkling moment. So there. Okay, a few more from this book, and then I'll. You know what? I'll read just this. This is an unpublished poem, as they say. It's called Game, G-A-M-E. Half a century and tea. And more runs to the wicket, but no happily overactive Sunday. Just a gentle incline, grassy slope, dandelion fields, passing clouds, memories of green, and a bottle to wash with, and a towel to mop a fevered brow when it gets too hot, but it never really gets hot enough. Just a bottle to drink from occasionally, to sip and sucker, hide away, hydrate, put it down on the ground, and then, oh so languidly, pick it back up again. Half a century and tea, and more runs to the wicket. No happily overactive Sunday, just a gentle incline, grassy slope, dandelion fields, passing clouds, memories of green, and a bottle to wash with, and a towel to mop a fevered brow when it gets too hot, but it never really gets hot enough. Just a bottle to drink from occasionally, to sip and sucker, hide away, hydrate, put it down on the ground, and then, oh so languidly, pick it back up again. All right. Let me read from, I'm going to read from As a Bee, because that's my newest book and the one I want you all to read. This book is a little more rural. My poems, as Vincent rightly pointed out, of sort of England and New York City. And this book has whoa, I did that. Some of these poems are a little more rural, like these ones. If a golden eagle soars seemingly static between moon and horizon, and then encircles, and then bisects the moon, and it is twilight, that is to say, almost perfect light, end of July, endlessness of the grasslands. And we are mute witnesses, and we are respectful. Scarcely a breeze up there or down here, and the rapt raptor still hovers. What then does that mean? If a golden eagle soars seemingly static between moon and horizon, and then encircles and then bisects the moon, and it is twilight, that is to say, almost perfect light, end of July, endlessness of the grasslands, and we are mute witnesses, that is to say, and we are respectful. Scarcely a breeze up there or down here, and the raptor still hovers. What then does that mean? I'm a big fan of the enigmatic question. You don't have to answer it. Here's another poem from the same countryside. No, different countryside, but it's not New York City. It's called Poem. Glimpse of heron on the riverbank in the fine mist of late afternoon, camouflaged by reeds. So green, so nonchalant, so now you see me, now you don't. Kabuki! And now I appear again, and splash, and spears, and dips his head towards the silver light. Glimpse of heron on the riverbank in the fine mist of late afternoon, camouflaged by reeds. So green, so nonchalant. So now you see me, now you don't. Kabuki, and now I appear again, and splash, and spears, and dips his head towards the silver light. One more piece of rural nostalgia. It's called Boat Ride, and then it has in brackets a group of six. Boat Ride, a group of six. Greetings from 2 cormorants and 4 ospreys. Our heraldic crest, witnessing our brave parting of the waters, the deftness of the male and female as we glide. I came out of the earth, paddle, paddle. I have friends in the sky, paddle, paddle. I am not afraid to look up or look down in this glistening water, you said. Or was that I? All around the ancient striations on the rocks and the gnarled trees, we stand up and breathe in the oxygen. They wink conspiratorially to one another. Greetings, greetings from 2 cormorants and 4 ospreys. Our heraldic crest, witnessing our brave parting of the waters, the deftness of the male and female as we glide. I came out of the earth, paddle, paddle. I have friends in the sky, paddle, paddle. I am not afraid to look up or look down at this glistening water, you said. Or was that I? All around the ancient striations on the rocks and the gnarled trees, we stand up and breathe in the oxygen. They wink conspiratorially to one another. I'm going to keep the between poem rap to the minimum. Hope that's okay. Tend to be a little garrulous sometimes, so you got off light. Can't get enough of that Cora music. Can't get enough of that Cora music, inscribing letters on a full moon. Each of the notes then, each of the letters crystal clear, incised on the moon's cheek. Absolute in a way, as she tumbles, as they tumble out onto the page, or into the sky, that blanket of emptiness, followed by cascades and shimmers of gold and black dust, and pinpoints of light. That's you. Can't get enough of that Cora music, inscribing letters on a full moon. Each of the notes then, each of the letters, crystal clear, incised on the moon's cheek. Absolute in a way, as she tumbles, they tumble out onto the page or into the sky. Sky, that blanket of emptiness, followed by cascades and shimmers of gold and black dust and pinpoints of light. That's you. My cosmic poem. Lizard sits on a rock, lizard sits, sun's hot, sun refracted to lizard through the spotlessly clean high-rise plate glass windows. Lizard is not disturbed by this, not at all. Lizard even opens self up wider, stretch to properly adjust to sun's rays. Lizard finds health and warmth in the depth of winter. And this is not what lizard expects. Lizard sits on a rock. Lizard sits, sun's hot, sun refracted to lizard through spotlessly clean high-rise plate glass windows. Lizard is not disturbed by this, not at all. Lizard even opens self up wider, stretch to properly adjust to the sun's rays. Lizard finds health and warmth in the depth of winter. And this is not what lizard expects. As long as she lived, I was sensible of the misfortunes of being blind. Scales falling from my eyes, I still had my looks. It was for that reason that I adored her image, embodied in amber. Trapped, we would perhaps live forever. This is called Biographica Literaria, after Coleridge. With his sweetheart, this is the genre of the biographical poem. I'll maybe only read this one, but there's another pleasing form. I'll tell you who it is at the end of the poem. That's the way to do this. With his sweetheart Lizzie Olive, he helped run the Bull House tobacconist. All the confectionery there was in jars. Licorice sticks, gobstoppers, lemon twists. Old, ivy-festooned, weathered but sturdy Bull House. Or, as it was more familiarly known, quote, the house with the monkey on it, on account, see, of one of the gargoyles. All along the brass railings were the requisite ashtrays, a basket of pipe cleaners, spittoons, a quid of the finest shag. It was his home, mi casa, he used to say, away from the claws of the law. Private. With his sweetheart Lizzie Olive, he helped run the Bull House tobacconist. All the confectionery there was in jars. Licorice sticks, gobstoppers, lemon twists, old ivy-festooned, weathered but sturdy Bull House, or, as it was more familiarly known, the house with the monkey on it, on account, see, of one of the gargoyles. All along the brass railings were the requisite ashtrays, a basket of pipe cleaners, spittoons, a quid of the finest shag. It was his home, mi casa, he used to say, away from the claws of the law. Private. That was Tom Paine's home in Sussex, England. This is for Bill Berkson. It's called Satori. Bill, among many other things, organized a show of George Harriman and Crazy Cat. And, among many other things. And it's Satori for Bill. Ignatz throws his brick, and the glorious world is revealed. For what it is, glorious. Ignatz throws his brick, and the heavens are opened. Ignatz throws his brick, and the combined forces of a unit of weight in velocity approximately X pounds heat seeks its target. I'm coming to you, sir, officer. I'm coming to you as a zephyr, sans disturbance. I expect little stars to appear all around your head. I expect you to be bemused, but finally realize. Frida fostered the fan club. Frida fostered the fan club, the incremental, and the increasingly ascending order. The boys would look in from time to time, though mostly they'd be outside, playing their instruments, or inside, studying their charts. Frida kept it real, kept it normal. She wouldn't broach deceit from anyone, not our Frida. Money, fame, or happiness. She stacked the cards up for happiness. My friend Franco Beltrametti, poet and painter, has just had a lovely book published posthumously. He died 10 years ago now, of his collected poems. And to my amazement, I've written 3 poems to Franco. Just I didn't know I did that. Here's one of them. He believed in Zen friendship and architectural notation. He believed, sotto voce, Franco, in bodhisattva vows, the maximum compassion, the minimum number of syllables. Okay. I climb inside the old woman and peek through the eye. I trace circles on the bark of the varnished slice that's so proudly on display. I look up hundreds of feet into the sky, into the canopy of branches, where other whisperers and other trees are growing. I climb inside the old woman and peek through the eye. I trace circles on the bark of the varnished slice that's so proudly on display. I look up hundreds of feet up into the sky, into the canopy of branches, where other whisperers and other trees are growing. Sands at 70, earth at 80, nonagenarian sticks and stones. How swiftly the banquet declines. How simple that final banquet. Do I make myself clear? Am I run out? Given too much away? It may be that I am spoiled. I have forgotten the simple practice of aging gracefully. My love's sincere expression, the overwhelming question, what fears may I banish? What kindnesses bestow? What sympathetic peace engender? To start with simple practice, to begin at the beginning. What auroric innocence, what lullaby to sleeplessness, what moving, billowing, ugly winter's clouds dispel. Genius divine healing is a science and an art that we practice here in Elysium, feet on the ground, taking it in from the heat that surrounds the earth, that protects the stars and fiery Saturn's rings. It isn't enough to temporarily alleviate the underlying symptoms. We can do so much more from up here. I have another form of poem, the last I'm going to inflict on you in terms of forms, which is the ghost, the heavenly ghost, the spiritualist ghost sitting up there telling you how to behave. I'll read this poem. I'll do what Bob did now. This is called A Spectre. It's for Brenda Coltis, friend and poet Brenda Coltis. And the reason I read this poem is, again, the form is of a ghost talking down to the people on the earth, and it walks a fine line of bathos. I hope it doesn't fall down. A spectre. My dear, it's lovely to linger near the scenes of the earth, to be near, to hear what you have to say, what pours forth ceaselessly from your garrulous mouth in these latter days, which we won't call these latter days, to scrutinize and survey your glossolalia, to see you, to see what you do. I'm here. I'm here. Genius divine healing is a science and an art that we practice here in Elysium, feet on the ground, taking it from the heat that surrounds the earth, that protects the stars and fiery Saturn's rings. It isn't enough to temporarily alleviate the underlying symptoms. We can do so much more from up here. So get to it. All right, maybe, how am I doing? Yeah, maybe 2 or 3 more, and then that will close it down. I wanted to read. I have a whole bunch of painting poems, and I thought on the occasion of Dia I should read all my painting poems, and I haven't read any of them. Here's one though. Poem, The Mysterious Robert Feeke, F-E-K-E. The mysterious Robert Feeke in the drawing rooms and parlors of Manhattan, ubiquitous in the 1740s. A painter, said Doc Hamilton. Well, that he was. Quote, the most extraordinary genius that I ever knew. Feeke came down from lush upstate with his easel and his big box of oils, but he didn't stay. Too much the itch and the smell of the brine. Oh, to sail away on a great big ship. That was what you do. He'd been a mariner. He tarried a while. He missed being one. The mysterious Robert Feeke in the drawing rooms and parlors of Manhattan, ubiquitous in the 1740s. A painter, said Doc Hamilton. Well, that he was. The most extraordinary genius that I ever knew. Feeke came down from lush upstate with his easel and a big box of oils, but he didn't stay. Too much the itch and the smell of the brine. Oh, to sail away on a great big ship. That was what you'd do. He'd been a mariner. He tarried a while. He missed being one. Why don't I? All right. I'll finish with 2 poems. One is I've been working forever with Allen Ginsberg's poems. I've been doing helping anonymously, I'm just outing myself now, what's wrong? Whoops. Doing a sort of a blog of his work, about his work, or about his friends, about his milieu and everything. And so Howl, I don't want to read any more beat poems in my life if I've got to that stage. But howl, and the word howl has, if pitched correctly, has an extraordinary, it's an extraordinary word, So I found I wrote this poem that ends with that word, but it's also a elegy to to New York, to my home. It's called Transient. Breathe in, the bellies flop, the church bells sing. Sorry, let's try that again. Breathe in, the bellies flop, the church bells ring outside, less and less now. Only every other Sunday, now not even that, now not at all. Silent the steps where sit, bitch, meditate, rocking in your stocking feet, howling. Breathe in, the bellies flop, the church bells ring outside, less and less now. Only every other Sunday, now not even that, now not at all. Silent, the steps where sit, bitch, meditate, rocking in your stocking feet, howling. All right, I want to end it on a sweeter note, a more positive note. So this book, As a Bee, I'm always very careful of how I end books of poems or how I begin books of poems. So it's always a pleasure when I think that the last poem in the book is okay. And this is the last poem in the book, As a Bee. And it's called Smoke Extinguished. And I thank you for your ears and your attention. Folks, we are on our way. Anyone out in the hallway now can come in now. Dawdlers and stragglers. No time for dawdlers and stragglers. The lights are about to go on or off. The sound is turned down or up. There is great anticipation in the air. We would like you all to remain in your seats in the interim for the duration of the proceedings. Have faith. The show is about to spiral. Thank you.